I want to have an honest discussion about PlayStation Plus Extra, especially considering how it's evolved over the years. I remember when the service first launched, it felt like an absolute game changer for PlayStation users. Sony wasn't holding back. They gave us some of their best exclusives like Spider-Man 2018, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Horizon Forbidden West. These weren't just filler games, they were high-quality first-party exclusives that defined the PS4 and PS5 experience. But over the past few years, things have started to change, slowly and almost without many people noticing. The selection in PS Plus Extra has been trimmed down. And I'm not just talking about third-party games, which I can understand. Maybe Sony pays a hefty sum to developers for a limited-time deal. It makes business sense even though it's not ideal for gamers. But recently, it feels like Sony is being more cautious, especially with its own exclusive. Take Spider-Man 2018, for example. They removed it from PS Plus Extra right before the release of Spider-Man 2. Now, to me, that feels like a strategic move. They figure, why give away Spider-Man 2018 for free when we can sell it at a discount during the Spider-Man 2 hype? From a business perspective, it's smart. Sony can rake in a few extra million from people who haven't played the original yet, but from a gamer's perspective, it sucks. You're taking away one of the best PS5 exclusives right before its sequel drops, making it harder for new players to experience the full story without shelling out more cash. This month, one of the biggest titles left the service, Horizon Forbidden West. Now, this is a Sony-owned property, so they had every reason to keep it there. Yet, it's gone, and it feels like another instance of Sony pulling back on what made PS Plus Extra appealing in the first place. This brings me to a bigger question. Do we really need these gaming subscription services like PS Plus Extra or even Xbox Game Pass? Don't get me wrong, when they first launched, they seemed revolutionary. Having access to a library of games, some of them top-tier titles for a monthly fee, felt like the future of gaming. But over time, I've started to wonder if these services are actually taking away some of the magic from gaming. Here's what I mean. Gaming, at its core, has always been about choosing the right experiences and diving deep into them. Whether it was saving up for months to buy that one game you were excited about, or replaying your favorite because you had limited options, there was something special about the process of making your choices count. With subscription models, it feels like we've shifted from valuing those individual experiences to hoarding a backlog of games that we never actually play. We're more worried about what's leaving the service this month than being excited about what's coming. Take PS Plus Extra, for example. In the early days, we were getting blockbuster games like Spider-Man and Horizon Forbidden West. But now, it's more indie games or smaller titles that, while still good, don't create the same buzz. And, if we're being honest, most of us aren't logging into the service every month excited to try out the latest indie darling or a filler game we've never heard of. At the same time, subscription services push the idea that more is always better. But does having access to hundreds of games at our fingertips actually improve the gaming experience? For me, it's starting to feel overwhelming. There are just too many games, and a lot of them aren't even worth the time. I found myself scrolling through endless titles on PS Plus Extra, only to get bored halfway through and return to the same few games I always play. It's like Netflix for gaming, but without the same value because, let's face it, a lot of these games aren't what you'd call must-play experiences. One of the things that subscription services have undeniably done is change the way we approach gaming. Back in the day, buying a game felt like an investment, both financially and emotionally. You were more likely to finish a game because you paid full price for it, and there was a real sense of commitment. You explored every corner of the map, tried every side quest, and really immersed yourself in that world. But with a service like PS Plus Extra, where you can just download a game for free and discard it after a few hours if it doesn't grab you, that sense of investment is gone. It's almost like the value of games themselves is diluted. Many people argue that Game Pass is better simply because it offers more games. But let's be real, quantity doesn't always mean quality. At the highest tier, Game Pass Ultimate costs around $20 a month. Sure, that's a lot of games on paper, but what are you really getting for that price? You're paying a subscription fee to access a massive library, but you don't own any of these titles. It's like paying rent for games you'll never truly have, and as soon as your subscription ends, so does your access. Let's compare this with PlayStation. Take the upcoming PS5 Pro, for instance. A lot of people are complaining about the lack of a disk drive, but that argument falls apart when you realize that a high-end $1,200 PC doesn't come with a Blu-ray drive either. Where's the outrage there? People are constantly talking about game preservation, yet many of them happily shell out $20 a month for Game Pass, bragging about how Call of Duty, Black Ops 6 is part of the service. But guess what? You don't own COD or any of those other titles. If they're pulled from the catalog, they're gone. That's the double-edged sword of Game Pass. It feels like a great deal until you realize you've spent hundreds of dollars and have nothing tangible to show for it. If you buy the PS5 Pro, even without the disk drive, and later decide to buy the separate drive, you can start building a physical collection. Let's say you buy 3 to 5 physical games a year. That's a much smarter investment long term. You can own these games forever, sell them if you want, and actually preserve your library. This is especially true when you consider that PS5 exclusives, like Stellar Blade or Spider-Man 2, have long-term value. And then there's the argument about needing a subscription to play online. Sure, but with PlayStation, you can get the cheapest tier, PS Plus Essential, for that. Not only does it give you access to online play, but you still get 2 to 3 free games a month. Plus, you get exclusive discounts on top-tier games regularly. Meanwhile, GamePass locks you into a more expensive tier just to access their best content, which again, you don't own. Let's also address the competitive gaming angle. A lot of serious PvP players, especially in games like Call of Duty, are moving to PC anyway. Why? Because playing with a PS5 controller is never going to match the precision of a mouse and keyboard. PC gaming is where the competitive edge lies, and no amount of Game Pass hype is going to change that. People who are serious about multiplayer are going to invest in a PC, not rely on a Game Pass subscription to carry them through competitive rounds. Most people playing Helldivers 2 are already on PC anyway, so Game Pass doesn't really offer a competitive advantage. Game Pass and PS Plus Extra may sound appealing at first glance, but when you dig deeper, you start to see its flaws. And don't even get me started on PS Plus Premium. Seriously, paying a premium just to play old PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 3 games in the cloud? These are games that many of us probably already bought back in the day, but now, instead of owning them, you've got to pay for a subscription to play them all over again? Come on, it's like they're charging you for nostalgia. If you want to play these classics, just get an emulator. You can run PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games on a PC, even on your phone, assuming you legally own the games. Why would you pay a monthly fee for that when you can literally play these games for free once you own them? And then there's the audacity to lock game demos behind the premium tier. Are we serious right now? Paying extra just for access to a demo? It's ridiculous. I remember when demos used to be a free, standard part of gaming. Developers would hand them out so you could get a taste of a game before deciding to buy it. This whole structure feels like they're milking every possible cent from loyal fans. It's almost insulting to think they expect people to pay for games they either already own or could easily play through alternative means. And the cloud gaming? Don't even get me started on that. The tech is still far from perfect, and yet they want us to stream old PS3 games with the occasional lag, buffering, or connectivity issues? For what? To relive classics in worse conditions than we had back when they first launched? PS Plus Premium should be offering more than this, especially considering the high cost of the subscription. On top of that, subscription models are starting to dictate what kinds of games get made. Developers and publishers know that a game needs to fit into these subscription ecosystem, which often means leaning toward games that can be consumed quickly or played in short bursts. Live service games and multiplayer titles are a perfect fit because they keep players coming back to the subscription. But what about the deep, story-driven single-player game? Sure, we still get those, but the emphasis is shifting. The industry is moving more toward creating games that keep us hooked with microtransactions, season passes, and multiplayer modes. And don't even get me started on how this affects the developers themselves. Subscription services often mean that studios don't make the same profits they would from traditional sales. Instead, they're paid upfront by the platform to have their game on the service, which might be great for indie developers looking for exposure. But what happens when a game gets lost in the shuffle? Another big problem is how live service games are invading single-player territory. Some of our favorite single-player games like Assassin's Creed or Fallout are being forced into this live service mold. This messes with what made them great, things like deep storytelling, character development, and immersive experiences. When they start adding online features or multiplayer components, it breaks the flow and takes away from the whole single-player vibe. Single-player games should stay as they are, complete experiences that you can enjoy without constant updates or multiplayer nonsense. All these issues make it clear that the live service model isn't doing gaming any favors. So, let me dive into something that really shook my perspective on gaming. Black Myth: Wukong. This game has, without exaggeration, completely changed how I feel about the medium. It's like a breath of fresh air, and it's something that I didn't even realize I needed until I was deep into the experience. You know, Black Myth doesn't hold your hand. There's no constant dialogue telling you what to do. No hints being thrown your way after 5 seconds of standing still. It doesn't bombard you with notifications or distractions. microtransactions like so many other modern games do. And for me, that's what makes it stand out. It's almost like the game is saying, figure it out for yourself. You're smart enough to handle it. It frustrates you. Sure, sometimes I find myself stuck on a boss fight for hours, losing over and over again. And man, it pisses me off. But here's the thing. After I put the controller down, I can't stop thinking about it. I'll be in the shower or just walking around, and my mind will wander back to that boss, analyzing what went wrong and what I could have done better. It's that kind of mental engagement that so many games are missing nowadays. The challenge isn't just in the game, it extends beyond it, into your thoughts. And when I finally go back and beat that boss, the sense of accomplishment is unmatched. This game strips away all the fluff and forces you to pay attention. There's no map, no breadcrumb trail showing you where to go next. You have to rely on your spatial awareness and intuition, which is a lost art in gaming these days. At first, I thought that was bad design, but the more I played, the more I understood. It's intentional. It's teaching you to navigate the world by actually immersing you in it, not just spoon-feeding you directions. There are no microtransactions, no DLC prompts pulling you out of the experience. It's just you and the game, which is so rare these days. I can't stress enough how refreshing that feels. It's the opposite of what subscription-based games and live service titles are doing. Instead of trying to keep you hooked with constant updates or paid content, Black Myth focuses on delivering a complete experience that stands on its own. And in doing so, it makes so many other games feel, well, kind of cringe. You know how in games like Spider-Man 2 or God of War, there's always some NPC or character chirping in your ear? Or in Spider-Man, your phone constantly ringing when you just want to enjoy swinging through the city? That stuff drives me crazy now. One of my guilty pleasures is booting up Spider-Man 2 and just swinging around the city. I don't even glide, I just swing. But first, I go into the settings and turn everything off. HUD, radio, notifications, background music, everything. And I swing. It doesn't matter if I'm playing as Miles or Peter, though I wouldn't mind swinging as Gwen for, reasons. But when I turn everything off, it feels like I'm the one swinging through New York, not them. I especially love doing this when it's overcast and raining. Not gonna lie, I once did this for 3 hours straight. What sets Wukong apart from your typical Souls-like is its approach to gameplay. Instead of sticking strictly to the Souls formula, the developers have crafted an experience that leans more towards the style of God of War. This shift in direction has caught the attention of David Jaffe, the creator of God of War, who has been very complimentary about the game's final trailer. Here's why this is significant. For a game from a relatively unknown developer to earn praise from a veteran like Jaffe is a major achievement. What Black Myth Wukong really did for me, aside from being an incredible game, is that it reminded me of what gaming used to feel like before the era of constant notifications, subscription models, and live services. It's crazy to think about, but there was a time when games were complete experiences. You bought a game, you played it, and it left a lasting impression. No battle passes, no microtransactions, no monthly lineup of new titles, or the anxiety of them leaving. It was just you and the game, figuring things out on your own terms. Now, don't get me wrong, I see the appeal of subscription models. They offer convenience, variety, and let's face it, sometimes they help us discover games we wouldn't have tried otherwise. But Black Myth made me question whether we're really getting the most out of this model. Think about it. When was the last time you really immersed yourself in a game without thinking about what's coming next month or what's being removed from the service soon? I'm starting to feel like there's just too much noise in the current state of gaming. So yeah, Black Myth Wukong is my game of the year, and other devs should take notes. It's okay to be confused. It's okay that there's no map. They did that on purpose. Some people call it bad design, heck, I did too, but now I get it. Wait, wasn't this a discussion about PS Plus Extra? Yeah, it mostly is, but it's also about learning to love games again. Gamers should focus on 1 or 2 games every couple of months and carefully choose what to buy. That's the magic of gaming. People complain that there are no games, but I think the problem is there are too many games, too many bad games, and too many subscription models we don't need. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share. What do you think about all this?